With the Magic struggling to start the season and so many problems to fix, the question has to be asked. The question has to be answered. Is Jamahl Mosley on the hot seat? Why, it's not yet time to panic, but it is time to think about it today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is November 6th, or will be November 6th. It's November 5th, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, credentialed member of the Orlando Magic media since the 2012 season. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we're going to dive into the question that I know every Magic fan is at least thinking about. Even I'm thinking about it. So we're going to do an episode on it. We're going to talk about the big problems the Magic face, the bets that have gone wrong so far, and what to do and what to think about the future of the Orlando Magic. Is Jamahl Mosley on the hot seat? We're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. You can make Locked On Magic even bigger part of your day by being one of our Orlando Magic dailies. That means you are listening 5 days a week. That means we are in your regular rotation. That means you're listening to us first in the day. We truly appreciate all of you who have Locked On Magic as part of your daily podcast rotation. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. I was at the UCF game on Monday, which probably not something I should be saying out loud because it was very, very ugly. UCF won. They beat Hofstra. Shout out to Coach Speedy Claxton over at Hofstra. Really ugly basketball game. The Magic would be very proud of how ugly that game was in a lot of ways. But everyone over there knows I'm the Magic guy. like everywhere I go, people know I'm the Magic guy. I get asked Magic questions by my friends, by my family, by everybody, by you guys. And look, that's what I'm here for. That's my job. That's all good. The number one question I've been getting, even from like seasoned reporters, who are interested in the Magic over at UCF, is Jamahl Mosley on the hot seat? Is he in trouble? We all see what we're seeing. We all see how this team has started the year and how much they've struggled. And with the expectations, with everything riding on this season, I do have a lot of followers who aren't quite used to the American draft system and how teams are formed in the NBA. And they ask me some people ask me tongue in cheek, like, is this team tanking? And I'll be like, there's no point. The Magic traded their pick. Everybody is wringing their hands. And the first thing I would say to you is it's still really, really early. And I'll explain why patience is still the answer toward the end of the show. But regardless of that, this season was always going to be about Jamahl Mosley. Yes, Paolo has to be better. Franz has to improve. Desmond Bane's going to do all this stuff. This season was all about Jamahl Mosley. Jeff Weltman was under pressure to do something. For anyone who's criticizing Desmond Bane trade so far and saying, the Magic gave up too much, and maybe they did, that was the move. There was no other move if you were considering winning a championship. It may not be the right move. It may be debilitating, and we're going to find out over the next 4 years. But that was the move. I will give Jeff Weltman the credit for doing a move that was so, just like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope last summer, so universally praised that trying to figure out why it's not working is baffling. Well, one of the reasons it might not be working is that the Magic might have the wrong coach. I am someone who does believe that, like players, coaches have roles too. Steve Clifford. When the Magic hired Steve Clifford, none of us expected him to carry that team to a championship. But all of us saw what Steve Clifford did with Charlotte and said, oh, no, he's going to bring a level of seriousness to this team that's going to get them at least to the doorstep of the playoffs. Obviously, they made the playoffs for 2 years. Honestly, it was the same with Scott Skiles. Scott Skiles is excellent at taking young teams and teaching them how to win at a base level. Now, he will grate you and you will run out of patience with them and eventually you outgrow him and the way that he operates his things. But the Magic that season needed a Scott Skiles. And obviously Scott Skiles, exposed a lot of issues within that organization. Didn't do it the right way. Didn't stick it out the way he should have, but exposed a lot of issues within the organization that needed exposing and ultimately led to the team's collapse. Jamahl Mosley has been and still is an excellent culture builder. The Magic are not in the position that they're in with the expectations they're in without Jamahl Mosley. And again, I will give Jamahl Mosley a ton of credit. Over the course of the last 4 years, he's always been great at keeping the big picture in mind, sacrificing maybe some short-term gains to help this team be prepared for the big picture. And I would argue he is even doing that today. The read-based system the Magic run works in the playoffs for the most part. There's a reason why he has scratched every ounce of his team in the playoffs, because they're able to tweak things and still keep their relative structure. But it is also undoubtedly true right now that Jamahl Mosley is not getting the most out of this team. They're 14th in defense, still super early, bad defense. They were 10th before entering the game against Atlanta. They dropped to 14th with one bad performance. Stats aren't sticky yet. But ultimately, we all knew the Magic's chances of winning a championship went through their offense. We assumed the defense would be great, and I think the defense will get back there. I really do. I think there's just some tweaking that needs to be done. I'll explain one problem that may be unavoidable that they have to work through. The Magic are going to be fine on defense. They may, top 5 may be tougher now, and I'll explain some reasons for that in a minute. But the Magic could not survive if their offense was in the bottom 10. And it was incumbent, and frankly, Jamahl Mosley's entire job this year was to make the Magic's offense competent, because we trust the defense will do its thing. And again, I still trust him. And again, I want to stress this too. I believe in what the Magic are trying to do offensively. It's not perfect yet. It's not executed well enough yet. But the things they are trying to do and the way they can do them, I believe in the vision. I do. I'm going to keep shouting that, because when it works, it works. And we've seen it work even in these games where the Magic really struggled. We've seen it work, just not long enough. And some of that is absolutely on Jamahl Mosley for not making sure they're running these pet plays and running these pet sets and continuing to grow, to kind of branch off of them the way that they should. We should not feel like, oh, it's really special when the Magic run a Paolo Bane pick and roll. That's been their best play all season. Run that thing to death. Find variations off of it. Run dummies with it. Why aren't, again, everyone's complaining that Franz Wagner doesn't touch the ball enough. I agree with that. Everyone's complaining that Desmond Bane's not getting enough shots. I agree with that too. Why aren't the Magic running the same stuff they ran in Memphis? Now, maybe some of that is because Ja Morant is a singularly different player and the Grizzlies run a different system. But at the end of the day, the offense is on Jamahl Mosley. And it's not for lack of trying. Not for lack of trying, that they're trying to do something different. But the fact of the matter is, Mosley may not be the guy. Now, we played 8 games. He's got 74 games to prove otherwise. And like I said, Jamahl Mosley has always been really good about seeing the big picture. He will sacrifice, and maybe that's going to be too penalizing in this instant, but he will sacrifice some short-term gains to build something for the long term, to build something for the marathon. He's not trying to win the match at the quarter pole. He's trying to win it in April. And the last 2 years, particularly, those seeds that he laid in November and October, we may not have been able to see what that tree would be, but they sprouted pretty well. So I would still argue, give him the chance. Give it a chance. There's still a lot to work on. But obviously, that other side of it's different. The short term does matter. The Magic do need to win. They can't afford to sacrifice games for the sake of growth. They need to win. And the fact that the defense has not come up with the defense has not maintained at the level that it was last year, that part is concerning. And so there needs to be a little bit of a reset. Just to close this segment out, is Jamahl Mosley on the hot seat? No more than he was at the beginning of the season. Honestly, no more than he was at the start of the year when, I got criticized by people saying like that this is a big season for him, and it is. Because if the offense does not meaningfully improve, that's the thing holding the team back from winning a championship. And you do have to ask, even with the changes Jamahl's tried to implement, is that enough to win a championship? And conversely, is there someone perhaps better out there? I don't want to comment too much further. Not because I know anything about this. I don't have any inside information here. But it's just really early. And I want to explain why patience matters and give some real world examples about this, but it's really early. It's later than it was 2 days ago. It's later than it was last week, but it's still really early. And so I said this yesterday. I've been telling this to people who ask me about it. This organization, this franchise, they're going to be deliberative about it unless Paulo Franz, Dez, unless players go to Jeff Weltman and say, this isn't working, we need a change now. Give the keys to someone else. The Magic aren't going to even think about anything until after the Thanksgiving road trip. Magic play their last 2 NBA Cup games. They play, I think it's at Boston, at Detroit, at Philadelphia. At Boston, at Philadelphia, at Detroit as a 3-game road trip during Thanksgiving week. And then they come and they have 2 days off. They have the whole weekend off, Saturday, Sunday off, and they play a 3-game homestand. I believe it's Miami, San Antonio, and Chicago, Miami, San Antonio, which looks a lot tougher now than it did at the start of the season. They play a 3-game homestand before they go out west. The Magic aren't going to touch this prospect until after that road trip. And that's game 20. That's the quarter mark of the season. So the Magic are going to give this some time, and I'll explain why patience is still the answer. But I want to get into why the defense is struggling a little bit and what Jamahl Mosley can do immediately to try and alleviate that pressure. The problem with pace, we're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by friends over at Gusto. Let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in, to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save you hours every week. And you can always reach a certified HR expert anytime to give you real peace of mind. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/LockedOnNBA and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/LockedOnNBA. That's Gusto, Gusto. One more time, that's gusto.com/LockedOnNBA. So I went to you guys. I went to you, the people, as Bane would say. I went to you guys and asked, decided to put together a poll. You can still vote on it if it's before 4 p.m. at Locked On Magic. I'm revealing some results here, asking what is the biggest concern for the Magic through the first 8 games? We're roughly 10 games of the season. Through the first 8 games, what is the biggest concern? And 2 things, I gave 4 answers. All of them are fair concerns: turnovers and execution, poor shooting, defensive lapses, and new player integration. All 4 of those are problems. The person who said all 4 of them, you're right. They're all problems. But the 2 that stood out in the voting on Twitter, 40% of my voters said defensive lapses, 36.7% said turnovers and execution. On YouTube, but the same poll, 52% said defensive lapses, 26% said turnovers and execution. Of course, these two issues are related. And I want to repeat this. Jamahl Mosley, this may be the sword that kills Jamahl Mosley's tenure. Like the offense was always going to decide where the Magic moved forward with Jamahl. And again, he's got 74 more of these things. So long way to go. No one's in danger yet. Maybe the seat warmer is set to low. It's a light simmer. It's a slow cooker, but we got a long, long way to go here. A lot's going to change. And we'll talk about that in our last here. But I do think, while I like the idea of introducing more pace, and the Magic are, I believe, 7th in the league in pace the last time I checked. And I can check again because I have the stats loaded, right? Oh, I have the stats loaded. I can check here because I have the stats loaded here. The Magic are currently 6th in pace, 102.9 possessions per 48 minutes. They were at 97 last year. They're playing 5 possessions faster. I think we mentioned this at the time we were talking a little bit more about pace. Just from a possession standpoint, that's 10 more points up for grabs, essentially. 5 more possessions for you to score, 5 more possessions to give up points. So that's why we focus on per possession numbers and per 100 possession numbers, so we can equalize some of the stuff. But I like the idea of introducing pace, and I think a lot of the problems are just the team trying to understand and understand tempo a little bit better and being smarter about it. They've talked a little bit about this, and some of that's going to come from experience. Some of that's going to come from the coach giving guidance. And I think that is something that needs to happen more. Because, I think pace has helped the Magic. Remember, they were 27th in league in offensive rating last year. They're sitting at 23rd. Nominally better, not significantly better, but nominally better. They're shooting better. But the increased pace, the Cavs actually have a worse offense than the Magic right now. That's how early in the season we are. I want to mention that. But the increased pace that the Magic are playing at also means teams have the opportunity to run back at them. It is worth mentioning that, frankly, pace is up around the league. I don't think the numbers show that. The slowest team in the league, or the lowest possession team in the league, is the Celtics at 96.7 possessions per 48 minutes. The Magic last year at like 97.2. Going to be interesting to watch because the Magic will play the Celtics 2 times. How the Magic react to maybe playing at a slower pace. But I think the biggest issue that the Magic have is because they're playing faster, because they're getting up more shots, because of the way that they've had to play, because of the way they're struggling to shoot, teams are running at them a little bit more, and the Magic are struggling in transition. I can actually pull up those numbers. So if you give me a second to stall, I could tell you the difference in transition between the Magic this year and the Magic last year. This season, the Orlando Magic in transition. So they're great offensively in transition. They're still doing fine in transition defensively. According to friends at Synergy, the Magic are giving up 1.09 points per possession in transition. That is nearly the top quarter of the league. They're in they're 73rd percentiles. Rated very good. And actually, if you look at their defense, most of their defense is pretty good. They're struggling a little bit on post-ups, struggling on cuts, struggling on handoffs, but mostly and giving up some spot-up threes. They're giving up a lot of dribble penetration. That's the big thing, but still mostly okay on defense. Again, using the eye beholder. But that's 1.09 points per possession in transition. They had 189 transition possessions, which 23.6 transition possessions. That's the big thing. Transition possessions are up. Last year, the Magic gave up 1.109, so they were still pretty good, but they're better this year in transition defensively. But they have 23.6 transition possessions against them this year. Last year they were at 19.6. So again, you have more possessions. Transition is just an easier place to score. And so because the Magic are turning the ball over, because they're playing more possessions, because they're playing faster, because they have to drive to the rim so much. Frankly, I think the biggest thing hurting this team's defense is that they're constantly having to track back. They're just giving up too many of these transition points. And then you add on top that, yes, like Desmond Bane is not the defender Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is. He's struggling to navigate screens. He's digging in too deep, giving up spot up threes in the corner. He's not rotating properly. He's maybe trying to feed guys. Think of Jaren Jackson. I've seen people say he's trying to feed guys with Jaren Jackson Jr. behind him. That Wendell Carter's not Jaren Jackson Jr., despite those numbers suggesting he's the best defensive center in the league. There is, at least defending field goal percentage at the rim, there are a lot of little problems to clean up. I don't know if slowing down completely, they should not go back to what they were last year. Let's be clear about that. The Magic are better offensively, and the pace is a big reason why. So if what we're experiencing now are growing pains to learn how to play at this pace and make right decisions, again, I respect Jamahl Mosley a ton. I'm willing to give some benefit of the doubt because he has always been good at the big picture. Whatever criticism you have of him, he's always good at getting the big picture, having the team playing its best basketball at the end of the season. That's been consistent. They've beaten their overall win percentage after the All-Star break every single year of his tenure. They played a great playoff series against Cleveland. Jamahl Mosley's teams outperformed themselves in the playoffs. So I have every confidence that this is going to get fixed, that it's going to click at some point. And again, like, I don't think you move on from Mosley this season unless it is clear that the team has quit on him. And that is certainly not the case. I think this team is trying to figure it out. I think that they maybe expected it to be easier than it was, and they're getting a little bit of a wake-up call. And look, it's not going to change until they change it. Coach can't control effort to a certain extent. I think there are tweaks that Mosley has to do. I think he has to simplify his offense. I think they should slow down in the half court a little bit. Make it a rule, like no quick shots unless they are wide open. They need to simplify their passing and their reads. I think that's a big thing. And again, that's on Mosley. I think a little bit more structure. I've always said this about Mosley. A little bit more structure would go a long way to helping the offense. And conversely, lowering those turnovers will help the defense because I don't think the Magic's defense is as good as it was last year. And I didn't expect it to be. But in the half court, I think they're fine. I think they'll mostly hold their own in the half court defensively. Atlanta killed them in transition on Tuesday night. And then, like, Atlanta hit a lot of open threes. Orlando looked small, looked a little flat-footed. There's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. But I think we're seeing the problem with the pace. Is that when it's out of control, when it's too much, you don't get the chance to set your defense up. And that puts you on your back foot. When this, the games that the Magic have played well in and when they've controlled the games, it's because they're allowed to get their defense set and they're allowed to be physical. They're not playing retreat. They're not playing catch up. They're not playing frenetic. So there's a difference between playing fast and playing frenetic. And I think too often the Magic dig into playing frenetic. Like Charlotte plays frenetic. Like that's how they want to play. But they're all over the place. Washington, they were all over the place. It's about calm and poise. And I think figuring out how to get that out of this team, that's the trick right now. Again, I'm a believer in what the Magic are trying to do. And again, like, I don't know what's going to end up happening this year. Maybe they get it, maybe they don't. Maybe Jamahl makes it at the end of the year, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's the coach next year, maybe he's not. I want to give Jamahl Mosley the credit of saying he looked at his team's offense and said, this isn't good enough. We need to change something. And they didn't change like the overall principles and the overall idea of that's the basis of this offense. And again, maybe that's the problem. It might be. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not. I think a little more structure would be good for them. And that's not what Jamahl Mosley's done for this team. But they needed to change something. And, Jamahl Mosley essentially staked his entire coaching tenure with the Magic on this something. That's and that's the bet of the season. Like that is the season. If the Magic can get a halfway decent offense, they're going to be fine. If the Magic continue to be a bottom 10 offense and have these long lulls where they just look completely lost and disconnected, they're going to be in trouble. And because they're playing faster, the defense isn't quite the backstop it was last year. And again, to me, that's the thing we got to fix. Like before we fix anything offensively, the offense, let it do what it's going to do. Put your defense in the best position to succeed because your best offense comes from transition and getting stops. So do that. Do that first and foremost. That's the secret sauce. That's the formula. Do that first and foremost. Magic have work to do. Let's just put it that way. I am an optimist. I don't think Jamahl Mosley's seat is as hot as fans want to think it is. So let me explain why patience is still the answer. Some history lessons for you kids coming up next on Locked On Magic. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I've said this a few times today. I want to repeat this. We are 8 games into an 82-game season. And 10% sounds like a lot. But a little dose of perspective, just a few things I want to note. If you win 50 games, you still lose 32. And 32 games sounds like a lot of losses. Now, granted, like the Magic have to go now 47 in, what's the record? 47 in 27 to get to 50 wins. So certainly a little bit more of a challenge. But if this team is as good as we think it is, like they're going to have that kind of a stretch anyway. Another point of reminder, the Magic last year started 3-6. And they ended up 41-41, but the Magic started 3-6 last year. They lost 5 games. They lost all 5 games on an early season 5-game road trip, obviously because Paolo Banchero's injury happened. They were still kind of shell-shocked from it. Took them a few games to kind of get their footing back and figure out how to play again, but they figured it out. And after that 5-game losing streak, what happened? They won 6 straight and won 12 of their next 13. They got to the NBA Cup final or the NBA Cup quarterfinals. This is to say that things change very quickly in the NBA. The Orlando Magic in 2021 started 4-0, obviously an injury to Markelle Fultz. They won, 17 games the rest of the season, shortened season, but 17, 18 games the rest of the season. Things change very, very fast. And the games come, best part about the NBA is there's always another game. There's always another opportunity. As high as we were writing on Saturday night is as low as we're feeling now after the Atlanta game, is as high as we might be feeling after Friday's game against Boston. And look, Boston, decent defensive team, struggling to offensive rebound, slow pace team, very different challenge, can get hot from 3, can be cold from 3. They're the Boston Celtics. Will be an interesting challenge, and we'll see if the Magic are up to it. It's a game that is going to be a bellwether game for the Magic, not only because it's an NBA Cup game, and I think those are important, but it's going to be important, and we'll talk NBA Cup stuff tomorrow, but it's going to be important just to beat a decent team. Celtics are also 3-5. They're not super happy with where they're at. They've given up. They've taken some bad losses as much as they've scored some nice wins. They're inconsistent. So everyone's kind of inconsistent right now. And the best part is it's so early in the season that 3-5 still has you in the play-in tournament. The Magic are 10th place in the play-in tournament. They're a game back of the 2 teams at 500. The Cleveland Cavaliers and New York Knicks, and the Knicks are playing the Timberwolves as I'm recording this. They're 4-3. They're only a game and a half up. There is a lot of basketball left to play. The Charlotte Hornets are 3-5. There is a lot of basketball left to play. And so we can't overreact to anything quite yet. I mentioned it. Stats aren't sticky. Stats change drastically game to game. So I do think it's important to take a deep breath. Let me tell a little story here. One of the easy comparisons that a lot of people have made for the Magic and what they gave up for Desmond Bane is what the New York Knicks gave up for Mikal Bridges. And I will note what the Knicks did last year was very different. The Knicks acquired Karl-Anthony Towns the day training camp was beginning. So they completely shifted and changed everything they were doing from the very start. Those Knicks teams never were as down as the Magic are now. They're 4-4 through 8 games. But they kind of scuttled around 500 until late November. The Magic the Knicks last year were 6-6 on November 15th. On November 5th last year, they were 3-3. Then turned 3-4 and then 4-4. They did not really start picking up steam until then. They won 4 games in a row to get to 9-6. They were at 14-8 December 5th, and then they burned off a 9-game win streak to get to 24-11. And 24-11 or 24-10, excuse me, on January 1st. So again, like I think we need to wait before we talk or do anything until the Thanksgiving road trip. That's 12 games from now. 12 games. The Magic go 7-5 in those games. That puts them at what? 10-10, back to 500. You go 8-4 in those games. And those games aren't going to be easy. There's some tricky games in there. It's Boston, Portland. Then you go on the road to New York next Wednesday. Then you're home for Brooklyn. Then you're home for New York on that Saturday. Then you go to Boston. I'm missing games somewhere, but 14 games. I can't add. 12 games. Yeah, I can't add. We got a long way to go. That is the point I want to keep making. There is a long way to go. And even Mikal Bridges is a great example of how long we have to go. Mikal Bridges came to the Knicks last year as one of the best shooters in the league. Shot 42.5% in 2021, 36.9% from 3 in 2022, 38.2% in 2023, splitting between Phoenix and Brooklyn. High volume stuff, 37.2% in 2024, 35.4%. He ended, and then 35.4% his first year with the Knicks. He struggled a lot. His three-point attempts went from 37.2% on 7.2 attempts per game in 2024 down to 35.4 and 5.6 attempts in his first year with the Knicks. And this year, 48.6% on 5 attempts per game. Again, entering Wednesday's games. So it might just be that, again, you coach with Mike Brown too, so maybe there's a parallel there too. But it might just be that it's going to take a little longer for Desmond Bane to acclimate than we anticipated. And you got to have a little patience. Mikal Bridges, over his first 8 games with the Knicks last season. Again, just for comparison's sake, 35.1% shooting on 7.1 attempts per game. Now, Desmond Bane is obviously not at that level. He's really struggling. But Bridges' shooting did not really come around until a little bit later in the season. And obviously now it's working. And obviously he had a really solid playoffs. He shot 33. He only shot 33% in the playoffs. So it takes some time to integrate new players, and it takes some time to get your ideas down on how to get those players involved, especially when you have some established guys and have an established way of doing things. I still see so many of the Magic's problems as one of cohesion. The turnovers get fixed when these guys learn how to play with each other, and how to play off of each other, and what their reads are in this system. And again, we see how devastating the Magic system can be when they play it well. Honestly, like I looked it up. I previewed it yesterday. Magic went 8 for 22 on wide open threes in the game on Tuesday night. The Atlanta Hawks were 10 for 16. Like, they made their shots. The Hawks made shots. That was the difference in the game. The Magic got their open looks. They missed them. And then they got, the battle scars. Like this team has the very much, oh, here we go again feeling about it. And again, maybe that's something that only changes when you change coaches and maybe the team does need to rethink and more completely reshift what it's doing offensively and get new ideas in offensively that Jamahl Mosley isn't going to do. So, again, I think that is an off-season question more than a now question, because I think right now the issue is still everybody is learning to play with each other. This isn't 2K. I play my team on 2K. I put together random lineups and everybody works perfectly. They're all in the right spots. And, I know where the computer's going to put them. They're not doing anything crazy. That's not how real life works. This isn't a fantasy team on 2K. These are real people, real human beings trying to figure out how to make this work. And right now there's some growing pains, and we're seeing it on both ends of the floor, and it is frustrating, especially with the expectations this team has. But when it clicks, I don't think it's if. When it clicks, it's going to be fine. Now, is it going to be everything we hope it can be? That's what we're going to find out. And I think the problems we're seeing now are a little bit inherent. The Magic struggled with turnovers last year. Didn't matter as much because they didn't play as many possessions. The turnover issues that have plagued this team for the last 2-3 years, they matter more now because the Magic play more possessions. They give defenses, they give opposing teams more opportunities now. The missed free throws, like those hurt. That's completely preventable. I still think so many of the problems are just this team learning to play together and cementing the thoughts and trusting each other. And the only way that's going to happen is to play through them. And so there are hiccups. The Magic need to be better and need to win while they're going through these hiccups. I think Jamahl Mosley needs to be more consistent with his rotations and playing groups and not tinker as much as he has been. And obviously some of it you can't do anything about because of Jalen Suggs' minute restrictions. I'm a little bit worried about reintroducing Mo Wagner and this team not being settled. We're probably 3, 4, 5 weeks away from Mo Wagner returning. That's not reporting anything. I'm just saying that. This team just needs a few more guardrails, I think, to get those thought processes down, to get comfortable with each other. And then once that happens, we'll see this team take off. I'm still a believer in this team. Again, if there's any takeaway from this, it's we may be approaching Jamahl Mosley's ceiling. That may be the conclusion of the season. But this group still has a lot of room to grow, and they've shown us they can do it. And it's just about going out there and doing it and being more consistent. That's good for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. You can, of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the film-based download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. You can find me. You can find us on YouTube as well. Just search for Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, your Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. That's patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. Now that you're done making Locked On Magic your first listen of the day, go make your next listen the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 fantasy basketball podcast, giving you daily tips and helping you win your league, all while making you a smarter NBA fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, all part of Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We'll be back tomorrow to talk a little bit about Paolo Banchero and his secret evolution, why he's still the star that everybody wants him to be, even if he's not the star everybody wants him to be. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.